Would you trust the Black Cat or the legendary academy? The first thing Nyra noticed was the silence. Not ordinary silence, the kind that made the air itself feel as though it was holding its breath. The young black cat stood atop a grassy hill overlooking the village of Willowbrook. Morning sunlight painted everything in soft pastel colors. Lavender clouds drifted lazily across a pale blue sky while tiny glowing butterflies floated between blooming cherry trees. Every house looked like it belonged inside a storybook. Every cat below smiled. Every window sparkled. Everything seemed perfect. Except, Nyra couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching her. She slowly turned. Nothing. Only rolling fields of mint green grass swaying gently in the breeze. "You're imagining things again," she whispered to herself. She adjusted the little lavender satchel hanging across her shoulder before continuing toward the marketplace. As she walked, villagers greeted her warmly. "Morning, Nyra. Beautiful day. Your fur looks gorgeous in the sunshine." She smiled politely, but inside, something felt wrong. It had felt wrong for weeks, ever since the strange dreams began. Every night she dreamed of the same enormous silver door standing alone beneath a glowing moon. Every dream ended the same way. A mysterious voice whispered, "Find the academy before it finds you." Then she would wake, heart racing, unable to remember anything else. Nyra reached the village square just as the morning bell chimed. Cats gathered around colorful market stalls filled with glowing berries, fresh bread, painted flower pots, and sparkling crystals. Children laughed while chasing floating soap bubbles and chanted to never pop. An elderly calico musician played a cheerful tune on a tiny wooden violin. For a few moments, everything felt normal, until the sky cracked. Not with thunder, not with lightning. A brilliant ribbon of shimmering blue light stretched across the heavens. Every cat froze. The music stopped. The birds fell silent. The glowing ribbon slowly twisted into the shape of a giant feather. Gasps spread through the crowd. "No way! It can't be!" The sky messenger. From within the glowing feather descended a magnificent snowy owl wearing shimmering silver armor. Its wings sparkled like stardust. It landed gracefully in the center of the square. Every cat immediately bowed. The owl looked across the crowd before speaking in a calm voice. "I seek Nyra Ashfur." The marketplace erupted into whispers. Nyra's ears flattened. "Me?" The owl nodded. "Step forward." She hesitated. Her paws suddenly felt heavier than stone. Slowly, she walked through the crowd. Every eye followed her. The owl studied her emerald eyes for several seconds before producing an elegant silver envelope sealed with glowing blue wax. "This belongs to you." Nyra accepted it carefully. The seal carried the image of a crescent moon wrapped around a feather. The moment her paw touched the envelope, the seal dissolved into glitter. The letter opened by itself. Golden words floated into the air. "To Nyra Ashfur. You have been selected to attend Skywhisper Academy." The crowd gasped. Some cats covered their mouths. Others stayed in disbelief. Skywhisper Academy, the legendary school hidden somewhere among the floating mountains. Most believed it was only a fairy tale. Very few had ever seen it. Even fewer returned. Nyra's heart pounded. There must be some mistake. "There are no mistakes." The owl smiled gently. "You were chosen." Back at home, Nyra sat quietly while her parents reread the invitation for what felt like the 100th time. Her mother carefully folded it again. "I've heard stories about this place." Her father nodded slowly. "So have I." Neither sounded happy. Nyra frowned. "If it's such an amazing school, why do both of you look worried?" Her parents exchanged a glance. Her father finally sighed. "Because Skywhisper doesn't choose students based only on talent." Nyra blinked. "Then how?" "They choose cats who are needed." Silence filled the room. Needed? For what? Before anyone could answer, a loud knock echoed through the house. 3 sharp knocks. Perfectly timed. Knock, knock, knock. Nyra opened the door. No one stood outside. Only a small wooden box rested on the porch. Inside lay a single silver compass. Its needle spun wildly. Not north, not south. It pointed directly toward the mountains beyond the horizon. Then, for the first time, the compass spoke. A soft voice whispered, 3 nights remain. The needle stopped moving. Every candle inside the house suddenly went out. Darkness swallowed the room. Outside, far beyond Willowbrook, hidden among clouds, an enormous castle slowly emerged from the mist. Hundreds of glowing windows opened simultaneously. Somewhere inside the academy, a pair of golden eyes opened, watching, waiting, and smiling. 3 days passed faster than Nyra expected. Before sunrise on the 3rd morning, she stood at the edge of Willowbrook with nothing but her lavender satchel strapped across her shoulder. The silver compass rested safely inside. Its needle no longer spun wildly. Now it pointed with unwavering certainty toward the floating mountains that hovered beyond the clouds. Her parents stood beside her. Neither tried to stop her. Instead, her mother adjusted the collar of Nyra's jacket one final time. "You've always followed your heart," she said softly. "Just remember, kindness is never weakness." Her father wrapped her in a warm embrace. "And never assume the strongest cat is the one who roars the loudest." Nyra smiled, though her chest felt heavy. "I'll come back." "You will," her father replied. "But you probably won't be the same cat." Those words lingered in her mind as she waved goodbye and began walking. The journey lasted until sunset. The rolling meadows gave way to towering cliffs painted in soft shades of lavender and peach. Waterfalls spilled from floating rocks suspended impossibly high in the sky. Tiny glowing birds circled crystal trees whose leaves shimmered like polished glass. Every step made the world feel less ordinary. Then the compass began glowing. Ahead stood a narrow stone bridge disappearing into thick clouds. There were no signs, no guards, only silence. Nyra hesitated. The moment her paw touched the bridge, the clouds parted. Her breath caught. Skywhisper Academy floated before her. It wasn't just a castle. It was an entire city suspended among the heavens. Elegant towers reached into the clouds. Crystal rivers flowed through the air between floating islands. Massive pastel gardens bloomed on terraces carved into white stone. Hundreds of banners danced in the breeze. Every building glowed with warm golden light. It was the most beautiful place Nyra had ever seen. A cheerful voice interrupted her thoughts. "First time." Nyra turned. A fluffy cream and white Persian cat stood beside her, balancing two oversized suitcases on a tiny wooden cart. She smiled brightly. "I'm Clover." Nyra returned the smile. "Nyra. I knew it. You knew my name. The messenger list was posted yesterday." Clover laughed. "I read everything." Before Nyra could respond, another voice joined them. "You two planning to admire the view all night?" A tall silver tabby Maine Coon stepped onto the bridge. He carried only one backpack. No extra luggage. His calm amber eyes studied the academy without a hint of excitement. "I'm Orion." His introduction was short, almost military. Clover whispered to Nyra. "He looks serious." "I heard that." Orion didn't even turn around. Clover giggled. Nyra smiled. Maybe making friends here wouldn't be so difficult after all. The academy gates opened on their own. Hundreds of young cats poured into the enormous courtyard. Every breed imaginable filled the plaza. Long-haired Persians, elegant Siamese, massive Maine Coons, energetic Bengals, graceful Russian Blues, fluffy ragdolls, colorful tortoise shells, black cats, white cats, striped cats, spotted cats. The entire courtyard buzzed with excitement. Suddenly, every bell across the academy rang simultaneously. The crowd fell silent. A tall blue-gray Norwegian forest cat stepped onto a marble balcony overlooking the plaza. His silver cloak fluttered gently. His eyes held centuries of wisdom. "Welcome." His voice echoed effortlessly. "I am Headmaster Rowan. You have all traveled far. You have all dreamed of standing here. And each of you believes you earned your place." He paused. "You are wrong." A ripple of confusion spread through the students. "You were chosen. Every one of you. For reasons you may not yet understand." The headmaster raised one paw. The academy grounds began to move. Stone pathways shifted. Gardens folded away. Statues sank beneath the earth. Entire walls rotated. Within moments, the peaceful courtyard transformed into an enormous circular arena. Gasps erupted. At the center stood 8 towering crystal pillars. Each glowed with soft moonlight. Headmaster Rowan's expression became serious. "Orientation begins now." Several students laughed nervously. One ginger Tom raised his paw. "Is this some kind of welcome ceremony?" The headmaster smiled. "No. It is your first examination." The laughter vanished. "You have exactly 1 hour. Find 1 moon crystal. If you fail, you will leave Skywhisper Academy before sunset." Silence. 100 nervous faces stared upward. Someone finally asked the question everyone was thinking. "Where are the crystals?" Rowan's eyes sparkled. "If I told you, it wouldn't be an examination." Without another word, the bells rang again. The crystal pillars exploded into thousands of glowing fragments that shot across the academy like falling stars. Students gasped. Each fragment vanished somewhere beyond the academy grounds. The headmaster lowered his paw. "The Moonlight Trial has begun." Chaos erupted. Students sprinted in every direction. Some climbed towers. Others raced toward forests. Several immediately began arguing over maps. Within seconds, the once crowded courtyard was almost empty. Nyra remained standing, watching. thinking. She remembered something her father had once told her. When everyone runs in one direction, ask yourself who benefits. She slowly looked upward. Instead of chasing the glowing fragments, she watched where they had come from. One crystal pillar, 8 pillars, 8 launch angles. Her emerald eyes narrowed. They weren't random. Clover blinked. What? They were aimed. Orion looked at her with new interest. You noticed that too? Nyra nodded. They followed patterns. Orion smiled for the first time. A strategist. Before they could discuss further, a deafening roar echoed across the academy. The ground trembled. The academy gates slammed shut. Massive vines erupted from beneath the earth, twisting around the walls. Students screamed. High above them, a colossal stone guardian slowly rose from beneath the academy. Its glowing sapphire eyes opened. Its head alone was taller than the tallest tower. The giant spoke in a voice that shook the mountains. Those who seek the moon must first survive the Shadow Guardian. The enormous creature took its first step. The trial had become something far more dangerous than anyone expected. The Shadow Guardian's footsteps echoed across the academy. Each step sent gentle ripples through the floating islands, making bridges sway and crystal lanterns chime. No student moved. No one even dared to breathe. The giant sapphire eyes swept across the academy until they rested on the crowd. Then, it smiled. Not a cruel smile. A knowing one. As always. The first lesson begins with fear. Its voice rolled across the mountains like distant thunder. You may run. You may hide. You may even fight. But the shadows always reveal who you truly are. Without another word, the guardian raised one enormous stone paw. The ground beneath the students shimmered. Soft blue circles of light appeared beneath every cat. Nyra looked down. What is? The world vanished. A rush of wind whipped through her fur. She landed gracefully on damp grass. Birds chirped overhead. Pink petals drifted lazily through the air. She blinked. The academy was gone. Instead, she stood inside an enormous forest unlike anything she had ever seen. Trees with pale lavender trunks stretched hundreds of feet into the sky. Their blossoms glowed softly in shades of pink, cream, and pastel blue. Tiny streams flowed through carpets of glowing moss. Fireflies floated like miniature stars. It was breathtaking. And strangely, too quiet. Nyra looked around. No students. No guardian. No academy. Only the forest. She reached for the silver compass. Its needle spun wildly again. Then stopped. Not pointing north. Not toward a moon crystal. It pointed deeper into the forest. A cheerful voice called from nearby. Nyra. She turned. Clover emerged from behind a flowering tree, brushing pink petals from her fluffy fur. I thought I was alone. Nyra smiled with relief. So did I. A few moments later, Orion stepped quietly out of the shadows. I figured you'd both survive the teleport. Clover sighed dramatically. You always sound like you've already read the ending. I'd just prepare. Nyra looked around. Do you think everyone was sent somewhere different? Before Orion could answer, a scream echoed through the forest. Not far away. The three exchanged a quick glance. Without saying another word, they ran. They reached a small clearing moments later. 5 students stood frozen in place. In front of them, nothing. At least, nothing visible. One frightened Bengal cat pointed toward the empty air. It was right there. What was? A monster. Another student shook his head. It disappeared. A third cat whispered. It walked straight into the shadows. Nyra slowly scanned the clearing. Everything looked peaceful. Flowers, grass, trees. Then, she noticed something. A single blossom drifted sideways. Not downward. Sideways. As though something invisible had brushed against it. Move! Nyra shouted. The students jumped back just as enormous claws burst from thin air. A massive creature materialized. It resembled a wolf made entirely of black smoke. Its glowing silver eyes locked onto the nearest student. The creature lunged. Nyra didn't hesitate. She grabbed a fallen branch and slammed it against a nearby crystal stone. The impact created a sharp ringing sound. The wolf immediately turned toward the noise instead. Run! Nyra shouted. The frightened students scattered. The creature chased the sound instead of them. It smashed through bushes and trees before disappearing once more. Silence returned. The Bengal cat stared at Nyra. How did you know? She looked at the drifting flower. It disturbed the air. Orion nodded. It hunts from the shadows. Clover swallowed nervously. I officially hate this forest. As the three continued deeper into the woods, they began noticing strange carvings etched into the tree trunks. Every carving showed the same symbol. A crescent moon, surrounded by feathers. exactly like the seal on Nyra's invitation. These are old, Orion observed. Very old. Nyra gently brushed moss away from one carving. Beneath it, someone had scratched words into the bark. Trust the light. A few steps later, another message. Fear creates shadows. Further ahead, a third. Only together. Clover frowned. Do you think students wrote these? Nyra shook her head. They are much older. Then, a low growl echoed from every direction. One wolf became 3. 3 became 6. Black smoke flowed between the trees like living darkness. Silver eyes opened everywhere. The shadow wolves had surrounded them. Back together. Orion called. The 3 stood shoulder to shoulder. The wolves circled slowly, waiting, watching. One lunged. Orion sidestepped with remarkable precision, using the wolf's momentum to send it tumbling into another. Before they could recover, Clover swung her oversized suitcase. It smacked one wolf squarely across the nose. The creature dissolved into smoke. Clover blinked. Did I just defeat it with my luggage? Nyra almost laughed. You absolutely did. Another wolf charged. Nyra leapt onto a fallen log before springing over its back. As she landed, she noticed something. Whenever sunlight broke through the trees, the wolves hesitated, only for a moment, but it happened every time. The light, she shouted. They avoid the light. Orion immediately understood. They aren't hunting us. They are protecting the shadows. Clover looked upward. Most of the forest canopy blocked the sunlight. But how do we make more light? Nyra's eyes landed on hundreds of glowing blossom lanterns hanging from the branches. An idea formed instantly. She sprinted toward the nearest tree. Nyra! Clover yelled. What are you doing? Buying us a chance. Nyra climbed with astonishing speed. The wolves chased her. Exactly as she'd hoped. She reached the highest branch and wrapped both paws around one of the glowing blossom lanterns. With one powerful tug, the entire branch snapped. Hundreds of glowing blossoms cascaded through the clearing. The moment they touched the ground, they burst into brilliant silver light. The forest transformed. Dark shadows vanished. The wolves cried out. One by one, their smoky bodies dissolved into glittering mist until nothing remained. Silence returned. Only drifting flower petals remained. The 3 friends stood catching their breath. Clover laughed first. I can't believe that worked. Orion looked at Nyra thoughtfully. You don't just react. You observe. Nyra smiled modestly. I just pay attention. A gentle breeze passed through the clearing. The silver compass began glowing. Its needle no longer spun. It pointed toward an ancient stone staircase hidden beneath the blossoms. The stairs hadn't been there before. Or perhaps, they had simply been concealed by the shadows. At the top of the staircase stood a weathered archway covered in ivy. Across its stone surface were carved 4 simple words. Only the honest may enter. The 3 exchanged uncertain glances. Whatever lay beyond that archway, it was waiting for them. The ancient archway towered over the 3 young cats. Its weathered stone was wrapped in flowering vines that glowed faintly beneath the forest canopy. The words carved across its surface shimmered like moonlight. Only the honest may enter. Clover looked at Nyra. What do you think it means? Nyra stepped closer. I don't think it's talking about telling lies. Orion nodded. It's probably testing whether we're honest with ourselves. Before anyone could say another word, the archway began humming. Soft silver light spilled across the ground. One by one, glowing circles appeared beneath each of their paws. A calm voice echoed from nowhere. Speak one truth you have never spoken aloud. Silence. Clover blinked. Seriously. The voice repeated. One truth. The forest itself seemed to wait. Clover swallowed. She took a shaky breath. I pretend to be brave. Her ears drooped. Because I'm terrified of being left behind. The glowing circle beneath her paws brightened. The archway chimed softly. The truth had been accepted. Orion stepped forward next. He stared at the ground for several seconds before speaking. I keep everyone at a distance. His voice remained calm. But it's because losing friends hurts more than being alone. For the first time since they'd met, his confident expression cracked. Only for a heartbeat. The light beneath him glowed brilliantly. Another chime echoed. Now it was Nyra's turn. She froze. What truth had she never spoken? Hundreds of thoughts raced through her mind. Then one surfaced. The one she'd buried for years. She lowered her eyes. I've always been afraid. Her voice barely rose above a whisper. That everyone expects me to become someone extraordinary. A tear rolled down her cheek. But sometimes, I just want to be enough exactly as I am. Silence. The forest itself seemed to exhale. The glowing light beneath Nyra burst into silver petals that spiraled into the sky. The archway slowly opened. Stone doors that had remained sealed for centuries slid apart without a sound. Beyond the entrance stretched a forgotten city. The three cats stared in amazement. Ancient buildings carved from pale crystal stood beneath enormous flowering trees. Elegant bridges crossed streams that glowed like liquid starlight. Massive statues of long-forgotten guardian cats lined the streets. Everything was untouched. Not abandoned. Simply waiting. "It feels alive," Clover whispered. "It is," Orion replied quietly. A tiny bell chimed somewhere in the distance. Then another. Then another. The entire city awakened. Crystal lanterns lit one after another. Flowers bloomed instantly. Water fountains sprang to life. Dust disappeared as though invisible paws had swept every street. The ruins weren't ruins anymore. They had simply been sleeping. As they wandered deeper into the ancient city, Nyra noticed murals covering the walls. Each mural told part of the same story. The first showed young guardian cats protecting villages from enormous shadow creatures. The second showed those same guardians building Skywhisper Academy. The third made Nyra stop walking. It showed 4 young cats standing exactly where she and her friends stood now. A black cat, a cream Persian, a silver tabby, and a 4th cat, a beautiful white long-haired cat wearing a blue cloak. Below the mural was a single sentence. "Only 4 may awaken the heart of Skywhisper." Clover frowned. "There are only 3 of us." Orion looked around cautiously. "Then where's the 4th? The answer came immediately. A voice echoed through the empty street. "You're standing on my tail." Nyra jumped. She looked down. Nothing. Then, the stone beneath her paws shimmered. A fluffy white long-haired cat faded into view as though she had been invisible the entire time. She gracefully stretched before standing. Sky blue eyes sparkled mischievously. "Finally!" She smiled. "I thought you'd never get here." Clover's jaw dropped. "You were invisible." "Mostly." The newcomer brushed dust from her pale blue cloak. "I'm Luma." Nyra tilted her head. "Were you chosen for the academy too?" Luma's smile faded slightly. "Not exactly." "What does that mean?" Instead of answering, Luma looked toward the tallest tower in the city. "We don't have much time." "Why?" "Because they know you've arrived." "They?" Luma's ears flattened. "The ones who turned this place into a secret." A deafening crack split the sky. The ground trembled violently. The crystal streets began breaking apart. Across the ancient city, black vines erupted from beneath the earth. They wrapped around statues, crushed bridges, shattered towers. The peaceful city transformed before their eyes. Luma's expression darkened. "They found us." From the highest tower, a bell rang once. The sound was cold, heavy, wrong. Every shadow in the city began moving. Not because of the light, because something inside them was waking up. Stone statues slowly turned their heads. Crystal eyes glowed crimson. One by one, dozens, hundreds. The ancient guardian statues stepped off their pedestals, not to protect, to hunt. Luma looked directly at Nyra. "There was a reason the academy never told you about this place." Nyra's heart raced. "What reason?" Luma answered with one sentence. "The Moonlight Trial isn't a test." She looked toward the marching statues. "It's a prison inspection." And somewhere beneath the city, something enormous opened its eyes. The ancient city shook violently. Tower after tower groaned as black vines squeezed through cracked stone, swallowing glowing flowers and wrapping themselves around statues that had stood peacefully for centuries. The crimson-eyed guardians marched in perfect silence. No growls, no battle cries, only the heavy rhythm of hundreds of stone paws striking the crystal streets. Boom, boom, boom. Nyra instinctively stepped in front of Clover. "What are they?" Luma's cheerful expression had completely vanished. "They were the first guardians of Skywhisper." "Were?" "They volunteered to protect something so dangerous that they sacrificed their own freedom." Clover's ears flattened. "They don't look like they are protecting anyone." "They are not." Luma looked toward the center of the city. "They are protecting." "Run!" The 4 cats sprinted through the ancient streets as stone guardians closed in from every direction. One statue swung an enormous crystal spear. It shattered the pavement just behind Orion. He rolled across the ground before regaining his footing. "They are hurting us." Nyra looked ahead. He was right. Every escape route slowly disappeared as more statues emerged from side streets. "They don't want to catch us. They want us somewhere." Luma nodded. "Exactly." "Where?" "The heart chamber." Nyra frowned. "What's in there?" Luma hesitated. "I was hoping you'd never have to find out." They darted through an old library whose towering shelves stretched higher than the treetops outside. Ancient scrolls floated through the air as if an invisible wind carried them. One loose page drifted directly into Nyra's paws. Across the parchment was a faded illustration. 4 young guardian cats. 3 looked familiar. The 4th, a beautiful white cat. Luma. Below the picture was a date. 200 years earlier. Nyra stopped walking. Her heart skipped. She looked from the parchment to Luma. 200 years. Luma slowly closed her eyes. I knew you'd see it eventually. Clover stared. That's impossible. It should be. Orion spoke quietly. So, how old are you? Luma looked out the broken window toward the floating mountains. I stopped counting. Silence settled over the room. Finally Nyra asked, You've been here all this time? Luma nodded. I've been waiting. For us. For someone. Another deafening crash echoed through the city. The library doors exploded inward. Stone guardians flooded inside. Go! Luma shouted. She grabbed an ancient lantern hanging from the ceiling. With one powerful swing she smashed it against the floor. Silver fire erupted across the entrance. The statues slowed, not because the flames damaged them, but because they refused to step through them. Nyra noticed immediately. They can't cross moonfire. Luma smiled. You really do notice everything. The 4 escaped into a narrow alley hidden beneath flowering vines. For the first time since entering the ruins, everything became quiet. Too quiet. Luma leaned against the wall. I'm sorry. Nyra blinked. For what? I should have told you sooner. Told us what? Luma took a slow breath. I wasn't invited to Skywhisper. I was born here. The others stayed. My friends and I were the very first students. We created the Moonlight Trial. Clover whispered. You created it? Luma nodded sadly. It wasn't supposed to be dangerous. It was meant to teach courage. What happened? The prison beneath the city weakened. The shadows escaped. And we failed. She walked toward an old fountain in the center of the alley. The water had long since disappeared. Only cracked stone remained. My 3 friends sealed the prison. And you. I stayed behind. Why? Someone had to guard the seal. Nyra suddenly understood. You never left. Luma smiled faintly. I couldn't. Orion quietly asked the question none of them wanted answered. What happened to your friends? Luma looked toward the sky. They grew old. They had families. They lived wonderful lives. And they came back every year to visit. Her smile trembled. Until one year. They didn't. No one spoke. Even the wind seemed to stop. I watched generations pass. I watched villages become cities. I watched forests grow. And every year, I waited. Her voice cracked. But no one came anymore. A single tear rolled down her white fur. I became a story. A ghost. A legend. Students stopped believing. Clover quietly hugged her. Luma froze. For a second. She looked like a frightened kitten again. Then she returned the hug. I'd forgotten what it felt like. Suddenly, the silver compass inside Nyra's satchel began spinning violently. Not slowly, wildly. It emitted a pacing tone that echoed through the ruins. Luma's eyes widened. No. The ground shook harder than ever before. The fountain behind them collapsed. A deep crack split the earth. Golden light poured upward from beneath the city. Not warm light. Ancient light. Something impossibly old was awakening. The stone guardians immediately stopped moving. Every one of them knelt. Not to the students. To whatever was rising below. Luma's face lost all color. It's waking up early. Nyra gripped the compass. What is? Before Luma could answer, a voice echoed from deep beneath the earth. Gentle. Ancient. Powerful. At last. The entire city trembled. The heart has found its guardian. The compass flew from Nyra's satchel. It hovered in the air, glowing brighter than the sun. Then, it pointed directly at her. Every statue turned its crimson eyes toward Nyra simultaneously. And for the first time, they all bowed. The silence was overwhelming. Hundreds of stone guardians remained bowed before Nyra. Not one of them moved. Not one lifted its head. Only the silver compass floated above her, glowing with a warm moonlit radiance. Nyra slowly backed away. I think they've mistaken me for someone else. Luma didn't answer. Her sky-blue eyes were fixed on the compass. They never make mistakes. A deep rumble echoed beneath the city. The glowing crack in the earth widened until it became a staircase carved from shimmering crystal. Each step rose slowly from the darkness. The ancient voice spoke again. Come. The word wasn't a command. It was an invitation. Clover looked nervously at the others. Do we have a choice? Orion shook his head. I don't think we ever did. Nyra swallowed. If whatever's down there wanted to hurt us, It already could have. She took the first step. The others followed. As they descended, the city above gradually disappeared. The air became warmer. Crystal walls reflected thousands of shimmering lights, making it seem as though they were walking through the stars themselves. None of them noticed. The crimson glow inside the Guardians' eyes had faded. One by one, they peacefully returned to their pedestals. After what felt like forever, the staircase ended. Before them stood an enormous underground cavern. The four cats stopped in awe. It was unlike anything they had ever imagined. An entire underground sky stretched overhead, filled with floating stars that drifted like glowing jellyfish. Crystal waterfalls poured upward instead of down. Gentle rivers of silver light flowed through gardens of luminous flowers. At the very center of the cavern stood an enormous crystal tree. Its trunk shimmered with every shade of pastel blue, lavender, pink and silver. Its branches reached into the glowing ceiling. Instead of leaves, thousands of tiny crystal feathers swayed gently without any wind. "It's beautiful," Clover whispered. Luma smiled sadly. "The heart of Skywhisper." As Nyra stepped closer, the crystal tree began glowing brighter. One feather slowly drifted from its branches. It floated toward her before settling softly in her paw. The moment she touched it, the world vanished. She stood in the same cavern, but it wasn't empty anymore. Cats filled the gardens. Hundreds of them. Young guardians laughed together beneath the crystal tree. Some practiced climbing. Others trained with glowing staffs. Families gathered for picnics beneath flowering branches. Music echoed through the air. The city was alive. Then, the vision changed. Dark clouds rolled across the underground sky. The crystal tree dimmed. Black smoke seeped through cracks in the earth. Shadow creatures poured into the cavern. Guardians rushed to defend everyone. Nyra searched desperately. "Luma!" She spotted the young white cat standing beside three friends. Together they fought bravely. But no matter how many shadows they defeated, more kept coming. The tree's light weakened. One by one, the guardians began falling. Finally, the four young guardians placed their paws against the crystal tree. A brilliant explosion of moonlight filled the cavern. Every shadow disappeared. But when the light faded, only Luma remained. Alone, waiting. The vision dissolved. Nyra opened her eyes. She was back beneath the crystal tree. Tears filled her emerald eyes. "Luma." The white cat nodded gently. "It happened exactly like that. You've carried this alone for 2 centuries. I promised I would." Nyra stepped forward and embraced her. "You shouldn't have had to." Luma closed her eyes. For the first time in 200 years, she allowed herself to cry. A warm laugh echoed through the cavern. The crystal tree itself began glowing. Its trunk slowly opened. Inside floated a tiny creature no larger than a kitten. It resembled a fox with long rabbit ears, shimmering silver fur and a fluffy tail made entirely of starlight. It yawned dramatically. "Oh dear." It stretched lazily. "I slept longer than intended." Clover blinked. "You're adorable." The creature smiled proudly. "I know." It floated through the air until it stopped in front of Nyra. "My name is Solis. I am the heart keeper." Orion frowned. "The heart has a keeper. Every great power should." Solis twirled happily before suddenly becoming serious. "You've done well. But your greatest trial hasn't started yet." The cheerful atmosphere disappeared. The crystal tree dimmed again. Several feathers fell from its branches. Instead of glowing, they turned black. Solis looked upward. His playful expression vanished. "That's impossible." Luma stepped beside him. "What is it?" "The seal isn't weakening anymore." He stared at the black feathers. "It's breaking." A violent shockwave ripped through the cavern. Crystal branches snapped. Silver rivers turned dark. The underground sky filled with swirling black clouds. From somewhere far below, a roar shook the foundations of Skywhisper Academy. Not the roar of an animal. The roar of something ancient enough to remember the world before the academy existed. Solis whispered. "It found the crack." Another roar echoed. Closer. Much closer. The crystal tree suddenly wrapped glowing roots around Nyra's paws. Not to trap her. To protect her. Every feather on the tree pointed downward. Toward the darkness beneath the roots. Toward something climbing upward. Then 2 enormous golden eyes opened in the abyss. They weren't cruel. They weren't angry. They were hungry. The creature smiled. A smile so vast that it seemed to swallow the light itself. And a voice older than the mountains whispered, "Little guardian, I've been waiting for you." The cavern fell into complete silence. Those enormous golden eyes watched Nyra from the darkness beneath the crystal tree. They didn't blink. They didn't move. They simply waited. Even Solis, the playful heart keeper, had gone perfectly still. Luma's voice trembled. It woke up. Orion quietly asked. What exactly is it? No one answered, because no one wanted to say its name. The roots surrounding the crystal tree slowly pulled apart. The darkness below seemed to breathe, not with lungs, but with shadows. Every exhale dimmed the crystal flowers. Every inhale stole a little more light from the cavern. Then, a single paw emerged. It was enormous, covered in smooth midnight black fur that shimmered like the night sky. Silver markings flowed across it like constellations. Then another paw. Then a long flowing tail that sparkled with tiny stars. Finally, the creature climbed from the abyss. Nyra stared. It's a cat. The creature was easily 3 times larger than an elephant. Its long black fur drifted as though underwater. Its golden eyes glowed with quiet intelligence. Massive silver wings folded gracefully against its back. Unlike the frightening monsters they had imagined, there was nothing evil about it. Only sadness. Endless sadness. The giant lowered its head until its eyes met Nyra's. You are different. Its voice was deep and gentle. You are not afraid. Nyra swallowed. I don't think you're trying to hurt us. The enormous cat smiled softly. You are the first student to say that. Behind Nyra, Clover whispered. Student. Luma slowly nodded. Every Moonlight Trial ends here. The giant continued. For centuries. They believed I was a monster. They attacked. They ran. They screamed. Its eyes lowered. So the academy believed the same. Nyra frowned. You're not the prison. The creature shook its head. No. I am the lock. Silence. The words echoed through the cavern. Orion's eyes widened. The prison is below you. The giant nodded. Exactly. The crystal tree glowed brighter. Solis floated beside Nyra. His name is Astra. He was Skywhisper's very first guardian. Nyra blinked. The first. Long before the academy existed. Solis looked toward Astra with deep respect. When darkness first appeared in this world, Astra volunteered. He bound himself to the heart. So long as he remained here, the true darkness could never escape. Luma quietly added. History forgot that part. Nyra slowly approached Astra. You've been alone all this time. He smiled sadly. I had the stars. But he looked at the crystal tree. They don't answer conversations. Clover's eyes watered. That's heartbreaking. Astra chuckled warmly. You remind me of the Feist students. Luma smiled through her tears. They talk just as much. I heard that. Clover laughed. For a brief moment, hope returned to the cavern. Then, crack! The sound echoed like thunder. A long fracture raced across the trunk of the crystal tree. Everyone froze. Another crack appeared. Then another. Silver light poured from the fractures. Not outward. Inward. Something beneath the tree was pulling the heart's energy away. Solis gasped. No. It's feeding. Astra immediately stood. His warm expression disappeared. Get behind me. The 4 young cats obeyed instantly. The enormous guardian spread his silver wings. Every crystal feather in the cavern lifted into the air. The underground sky darkened. The ground exploded. Black vines burst through the crystal floor. Not ordinary vines. These writhed like enormous serpents. Each one carried glowing crimson thorns. They lunged toward the tree. Astra roared. The sound shook the entire mountain. His wings unleashed thousands of crystal feathers. Each feather became a blade of moonlight. The vines were sliced apart before reaching the heart. But more appeared. Hundreds. Then thousands. They are endless. Clover cried. They are distractions, Orion said. Nyra looked around. What do you mean? They aren't attacking Astra. They are keeping him busy. Before anyone could react, a shadow slipped silently behind the crystal tree. Small. Fast. Almost invisible. Only Nyra noticed. Its movement disturbed a drifting crystal petal. Just like the wolves in the blossom forest. There! She sprinted. The shadow turned. 2 glowing crimson eyes met hers. It resembled a tiny kitten made entirely of living darkness. It smiled innocently. Then, it touched the crystal tree. Everything stopped. The cavern fell silent. The little shadow kitten whispered one sentence. I'm sorry. The heart shattered. The crystal tree exploded into millions of glowing fragments. A shockwave of silver light blasted through the cavern. Nyra was thrown backward. Clover and Orion tumbled across the crystal floor. Solis cried out. Astra! The great guardian spread his wings around the students just before the explosion reached them. Countless crystal shards rained across the cavern like glittering snow. The underground sky went dark. One by one, the floating stars disappeared. The warmth vanished. The flowers wilted. The river stopped glowing. Skywhisper Academy itself began to shake. Far above, bells rang wildly across the floating islands. Students screamed. Teachers rushed into the courtyards. Headmaster Rowan looked toward the mountains. His face turned pale. No, he whispered. The heart has fallen. Back beneath the ruins. Astra slowly looked upward. His silver markings had begun fading. Without the heart, his strength was disappearing. He turned to Nyra. His golden eyes remained calm. There is one final chance. Nyra stepped forward. Tell me. Astra lowered his head until they were face to face. The darkness didn't choose you. It feared you. Nyra's heart skipped. What do you mean? Astra smiled. Because the greatest light isn't born. It is chosen. Before he could explain further, the shattered crystal beneath them split completely open. An endless void stretched below. From its depths came a low, ancient laugh. Not loud, not angry, confident, as if victory had already been decided. Then, slowly, something far larger than Astra began to rise. Its glowing crimson eyes opened. One pair, then another, then another. 6 pairs of eyes stared up from the abyss. The final battle for Skywhisper Academy had begun. The abyss roared. 6 pairs of crimson eyes opened beneath the shattered heart of Skywhisper. One by one, they rose from the darkness. The cavern trembled as an enormous creature climbed toward the light. It wasn't shaped like any beast Nyra had ever seen. Its body shifted constantly, woven from smoke, broken crystal, and liquid shadow. Great wings stretched across the cavern ceiling, blotting out what little light remained. Wherever it looked, flowers withered, crystal cracked, and warmth disappeared. Solis whispered the creature's forgotten name. Nyra. Even speaking it seemed to make the darkness stronger. Astra planted himself between the creature and the 4 young cats. His once radiant silver markings had faded to a faint glow. Without the heart, he was weakening by the second. Nyra smiled. So, after 1,000 years, you are finally tired. Astra stood tall. I would stand another 1,000 if it kept this world safe. The shadow beast laughed. You already lost. It glanced toward the shattered remains of the crystal tree. The heart is gone. The seal is broken. And soon, your academy will become mine. Far above, Skywhisper Academy was in chaos. Students poured into the courtyards as floating bridges cracked beneath them. Crystal rivers dimmed. The pastel gardens lost their color. Cherry blossoms drifted from the trees like snow. Headmaster Rowan stood at the highest balcony. For the first time in centuries, he removed the silver medallion from around his neck. He closed his eyes. The final guardian has awakened. Every instructor looked toward him. What do we do? Rowan answered quietly. We trust her. Back in the cavern, Nyra stared at the shattered crystal feathers scattered across the floor. Hundreds of them. Thousands. Each one still glowed faintly. She remembered every lesson of the trial. The wolves had feared light. The statues had followed purpose, not anger. The archway had opened only to honesty. Nothing in Skywhisper had ever been won through force alone. Every challenge had rewarded understanding, not power. Her eyes widened. The heart. She looked at Solis. It isn't really destroyed. The little heart keeper blinked. What? The tree broke. She picked up a crystal feather. But the light is still here. She held up another. And another. They're not dead. They're separated. Solisius stood straight. Of course. He looked around the cavern. The heart was never the tree. It was. Nyra smiled. Every feather. Nyra lunged. Darkness exploded across the cavern. Astra intercepted the attack, but the force drove him backward. His paws carved deep trenches into the crystal floor. He growled in pain. Nyra turned to her friends. I need time. You'll have it, Orion replied without hesitation. Clover tightened the straps on her oversized suitcase. I've always wanted to save the world. Luma smiled. And this time, I won't do it alone. The 4 friends nodded. Without another word, they ran. Orion studied the battlefield with calm precision. The pillars. He pointed toward 4 enormous crystal pillars surrounding the cavern. They are positioned like the points of a compass. Nyra immediately understood. The feathers belong there. Clover laughed. So we rebuild the heart. Not exactly. Nyra looked at the glowing feathers. We remind it what it is. The battle erupted. Luma disappeared from sight, becoming invisible once more. She darted between Nyra's sweeping claws, drawing its attention away from Astra. Orion climbed a fallen crystal arch, leaping from pillar to pillar with flawless precision, placing feathers into ancient carvings. Clover used her remarkable strength to drag fallen crystal fragments into place, rebuilding the shattered circles around each pillar. Meanwhile, Nyra climbed the largest pillar of all. The wind whipped through her long black fur. Below her, Astra struggled to hold back the growing darkness. He was running out of strength. Nyra noticed her. Little guardian. You cannot stop what has already begun. Nyra didn't answer. She reached the top of the pillar. At its center was an empty space shaped exactly like the silver compass. She removed it from her satchel. The compass pulsed warmly. As she placed it into the pedestal, Every crystal feather in the cavern lifted into the air, one by one, then hundreds, then thousands, like a flock of glowing birds returning home. The feathers spiraled around the four pillars. A brilliant web of silver light spread across the cavern. The shattered heart wasn't rebuilding. It was awakening. Nyra roared. Darkness surged toward the pillars. Too late. The silver web connected. Light rushed through every feather. Every flower bloomed again. Every crystal glowed. The rivers flowed once more. The underground stars returned. At the center of the web, the crystal tree didn't regrow. Instead, an enormous tree made entirely of living light blossomed before them. Its branches stretched across the cavern. Its leaves shimmered like moonlit feathers. The heart had evolved. Astra looked upward. His silver markings blazed brighter than ever before. Strength returned to him. He spread his wings. This time, the light surrounding him wasn't his alone. It came from every guardian who had ever protected Skywhisper. From every student, every teacher, every act of courage, every act of kindness. The heart had never belonged to one guardian. It belonged to all of them. Nyra hesitated. For the first time, it looked afraid. Astra smiled. You were never defeated by strength. You were always defeated by hope. He soared into the air. Nyra leapt from the pillar. Instead of falling, the heart's light formed glowing wings beneath her paws. She flew beside Astra. Together, they crossed the cavern in a streak of silver light. Nyra unleashed every shadow it possessed. The darkness crashed against the light. For one breathtaking moment, neither side moved. Then Nyra remembered her mother's final words. Kindness is never weakness. She didn't attack. She reached out a paw. Toward Nyra. I don't hate you. The shadow beast froze. Its crimson eyes flickered. You've been alone. For as long as Astra has. Silence. The darkness surrounding Nyra trembled. I know what loneliness can become. But it doesn't have to stay that way. A single tear of black crystal fell from the giant creature's eye. The shadows cracked. Not because they were destroyed. Because they were finally released. Darkness peeled away like old storm clouds. Beneath it stood a magnificent celestial cat with deep indigo fur dusted with tiny stars. No longer terrifying. Only exhausted. Nyra bowed his head. I had forgotten who I was. The cavern filled with warm light. The floating academy above stopped shaking. Flowers bloomed across every island. Students looked skyward as the pastel clouds parted, revealing a dazzling moon even though it was still daytime. Headmaster Rowan smiled. They did it. Days later, the academy gathered in the grand courtyard. The gardens were brighter than ever. Crystal fountains sparkled. Music echoed through the floating city. Rowan stood before the new students. For generations, we believed the Moonlight Trial existed to find the strongest guardian. He looked toward Nyra. We were wrong. It exists. To find the kindest one. The students erupted into applause. Nyra blushed, embarrassed. Clover cheered the loudest. Orion smiled without trying to hide it. Luma stood nearby, no longer bound to the ruins. After 200 years, she was finally free. Astra and the restored Nyra watched from a distant floating cliff, their great wings shimmering beneath the pastel sky like twin constellations. As the celebration continued, Solis floated onto Nyra's shoulder. So, what now? Nyra looked across the endless floating islands. She smiled. I think our real adventure is just beginning. Above Skywhisper Academy, hundreds of crystal feathers drifted into the sky, catching the sunlight until they looked like tiny stars dancing among pastel clouds. And for the first time in centuries, the academy was no longer guarding a prison. It was guarding a future. The end.